Welcome to episode 6 of OA On Air's Federal Insight podcast. Today, we're joined by Congressman Jim McGovern. Congressman McGovern was born and raised in Worcester, Massachusetts, and has been serving in the House of Representatives since first being elected in 1996. The elected representative for Massachusetts' 2nd Congressional District, Congressman McGovern first took over leadership of the House Rules Committee in the 116th Congress, and continues his service now as the panel's chair in the 117th. Rules is amongst the oldest and most powerful House standing committees, responsible for the rules and processes with which bills are presented, debated, and voted on in the House of Representatives. Unlike other committees, House Rules must deal with every area of policy, allowing Chairman McGovern to exercise his knowledge, expertise, and passion for topics such as food security and hunger in America, the health and vitality of our democracy, helping to improve the quality of life for constituents in his district and for people all around the country. On episode 6 of OA On Air's Federal Insight podcast, Vice Chairman John Cahill sits down with the Congressman, discussing a wide array of topics, including the upcoming fall White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, which Congressman McGovern was instrumental in organizing. They also discuss international topics, such as a contemporary look at our relations with Cuba, and the Congressman's recent trip with Speaker Pelosi and other colleagues to visit Ukraine. The two also swap stories and ideas on Massachusetts-based issues, specifically those that Congressman McGovern has helped push for in Congress, like East-West Rail. Chairman McGovern also shares with us his insights into the Select Committee on January 6th. He talks about their recent revelations and hearings, and also gives us his thoughts on the Supreme Court's recent majority decision to overturn decades of precedent with the Dobbs v. Jackson case. You're listening to a can't-miss episode of Federal Insight, recorded on Thursday, June 29th, 2022. Please enjoy Vice Chairman John Cahill's discussion with the Chairman of the House Rules Committee, the U.S. Representative from the Massachusetts 2nd Congressional District, Congressman Jim McGovern.
Hey, Jim, it's John Cahill here, and there you are.
Nice to be with you.
Great to be with you. Thanks for taking the time in a few minutes to talk about a few issues that are, some are current, some are maybe future, but we could, if we could just jump to the proposed food conference at the White House. I think you can remind me how long it's been since the nutrition food related conference has been held at the White House. Many years.
Yeah, it was 1969. That was the year we landed a man on the moon. And there was a White House conference on this topic, and it actually produced some good things. The WIC program, the Women's, Infants, and Children's Program, Head Start came out of that. The modern day SNAP program basically evolved out of that. Tufts University, then President Jean Mayer was very much involved in that. And it was, and it was a very good conference. I think the one critique of that conference is that most of the people there tended to look like me, and didn't necessarily reflect the diversity or the complexity of our country. And so I've been pushing for this for a long time, in part because government is siloed. And when you talk about ending hunger or ending nutrition insecurity, it's not just one agency or one department. We need everybody involved. There's a transportation component to it, right? There's a housing component. And so this is where you get an all-of-government approach together. I tried to get it done under the Obama administration. We weren't able to do it. Trump, forget about it. And then we pushed Biden on it. And I talked to the president about it. And he said yes. And as we speak, the White House is conducting, listening sessions all across the country, virtually, some in person. Dr. Susan Rice has been very much involved in supporting this. But these listening sessions are at capacity. They're filled.
Yes.
There's such interest. And the date of the conference will be in September. We don't have an exact date. But the goal is to come up with a holistic plan with benchmarks to end hunger by 2030 in this country. And this is a solvable problem. And I'm really grateful to the president for doing it.
Well, I can tell you that, and I know you've spoken to Kane Hayes, who's now the president of Point 32 Health, the combined
Right. Yep.
Tufts Harvard, and he's already sent off a missive to the White House, which I guess is part of this whole process of the listening sessions,
Right. Yeah.
with some suggestions, things that, based on their experience, he thinks should be broached, discussed on the agenda. So.
Well, we welcome all ideas. And by the way, there was lots of Massachusetts, ideas coming forth, because we're doing a lot of different things here. But I want to say that Dari Musafarian, the dean of the Tufts Friedman School, has been very much involved in this conference. People at Harvard, people at UMass, have all been very much involved. But we have some models here. In the health industry, Boston Medical Center is a good model for hospitals. But one of the things that we're talking about is food is medicine. My grandmother used to say to me, an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah.
It would annoy me. I wish she was still alive so I could say she was right. But the deal is, our health system, by and large, is detached from nutrition. Our education system is detached from nutrition, food, and agriculture. It makes no sense. So we need to think differently. And so we welcome all those ideas. And again, I hope this will be a substantive, hopefully transformational conference. This is a big deal, and the White House is taking it very seriously. And we're involving, again, every department and every agency, including the Department of Defense. One of the things that I've learned is that we have a hunger problem amongst a lot of our active duty service members. You just entered the military. You may be assigned to a base with you may have a family. You may be assigned to a base somewhere in the United States. You don't get paid very much. You get a housing allowance, but that housing allowance counts towards your overall income. So you're ineligible to get benefits like SNAP. So near every military base in the United States is a food pantry, because the people who we are asking to defend our country don't have enough to be able to put food on the table for their families, so they go to these food pantries. So we got to fix that. But that's just so again, when I say everybody needs to be involved,
Sure.
We need to think big and out of the box, and and do something meaningful. And we're working with the private sector, the nonprofit sector, our food banks, our healthcare leaders, our hospitals, our schools. So this is, everybody's involved. And and we're gonna get something done.
Now is the time.
Now is the time. And by the way, I'm doing in-person town hall meetings again, which is
God bless
interesting. Yeah, I know. It's like but somebody said to me, "Oh, this is another. You're just a big liberal that wants to do more liberal things," and I said, "Well, look." I would like to think, whether you're liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican or independent, whatever, that we all think that having 38 million people in this country not know where the next meal is going to come from is unacceptable. But if you're not moved by the moral argument that we should make sure everybody has access to good, nutritious food, and all you're moved by is the bottom line argument, understand this: hunger in this country is costly. The avoidable healthcare costs associated with hunger, people on bad diets, with chronic diseases, senior citizens taking their medication on an empty stomach when it says take with food, but they can't afford their medication, food, heat, rent, whatever. There's a huge cost. Lost productivity in the workplace. Kids who go to school hungry don't learn. And one of the things we hope to do is strengthen our school meals program. I personally believe we ought to move toward universal free school meals for everybody, because for kids, rich and poor alike, oftentimes the only good nutritious meal they get is in school.
Is at school, yeah. And there are districts that do that now.
Well,
that I'm aware of.
Right.
Some, yeah,
There are, and during the pandemic, we did it for everybody.
right.
We got to keep it
We should have
going.
continued, we should have
Yeah,
continued it. Yeah.
right.
Well, all right. So that's September. And I know we had spoken a few weeks ago about your plans to revisit for, I don't know what time this is, Cuba.
Right.
And I wanted to get not only when that might occur, but just your observations on, have we made progress in the last year on relations, on what we should be doing?
We made progress during the Obama years.
Yes.
More political space opened up, more interaction between the US and Cubans occurred. Business ties began to form. Research exchanges. Cuba has a big biotech industry. We do too. There are lots of discussions going on about how we could work together. And then Trump came in and reversed everything, and basically is instituted sanctions that are hurting the average Cuban, which I think is cruel. Look, Cuba has a very concerning human rights record, and we need to call them out when they violate people's human rights. But I think we have more influence if we're actually talking to them, if we have our embassy fully staffed and up and running, if we have a mature relationship between our two countries. Biden has made some movement in that direction. He's eased up on the ban on remittances, so Cubans can send their family members money. He's restaffing the embassy, but there's more that we need to do. Look, we have had a policy toward Cuba since John F. Kennedy was president.
61.
That basically was about isolating the island, about sanctioning the island, about trying to prompt, a counter revolution. Well, you know what? All these decades later, that turns out to be a really awful bad approach, because the lives of the Cuban people never got better. And the government basically was able to point to all of our interventions and interferences as an excuse for some of their bad behavior and their bad economic policies. So let's build on what Obama tried to do. Biden should go back and embrace that, and let's begin the process of truly normalizing relations between our two countries, allowing for there to be economic trade between our two countries, encouraging academic exchanges and exchanges between medical researchers. So I hope to go back in August briefly to kind of get a sense for what's possible. I've talked to President Biden about it personally on a number of occasions, but I wish he was moving faster. But there's a little progress to report.
That's good, because I know, as you know better than I, that there are numerous U.S. private sector entities,
right,
who are anxious to come to some, what I'd call negotiation, really, to work with Cuban entities, whether they're government owned or they're not. And
right.
Man, as you know better anyway, but it's a heck of a thing to try to advance if you're not even speaking to people.
Right. And look, here's my view. I think the best diplomats in the world are not in Washington, D.C. They're in Massachusetts, they're in Pennsylvania, they're in California, they're in Missouri. I mean, there are people. And, there are restrictions that Trump put into place that restrict you, a U.S. citizen, from being able to travel there.
Yes.
We're supposed to be the land of the free. Our government's saying that you can't travel there. That seems to me to be a little bit off message about who we are. And by the way, the more that we go back and forth, I think, the more we promote better relations and the more we open up political space. They can gain a lot from a better relationship with us, and we can get a lot from a better relationship with them. And we ought to just do it.
Yes, it's overdue. Another case of overdue. Right. Yeah. So I'd like to jump to a domestic issue.
Yep.
The East-West Rail project is on tap.
Right.
both you and Congressman Neal have said to me that the money's there. We should go after it. We should, have a plan. Don't try to do everything in one day, though.
Right.
Just give me your thoughts on the status and then where to go. And keeping in mind, as I did say to Mr. Neal the other day, that, Governor Baker only has a few months in office
Right,
here.
yeah.
And so look to the future being January 3rd.
Yeah.
But he said to me that he'd had a conversation about that. So anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. So, when I'm in Worcester or Boston, I call it East-West Rail. When I'm in the Pioneer Valley, I call it West-East Rail. Look, we've talked about this for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have kind of put it on the back burner because they say, how are we going to pay for it? Right? Where's the money going to come from? We don't have the money. Well, Congress passed the historic infrastructure investment bill.
Yeah.
Massachusetts is, in addition to its normal appropriation from the federal government for transportation and infrastructure needs, is getting an additional, I think, $12 billion.
Yes.
And so, plus the ARPA money that's still unspent. I mean, so the issue no longer is we have no money. And by the way, in the infrastructure and transportation bill, Senator Markey and I added additional language that provides, a pool of national money that we can apply for to help even add to what we need to do this. So, this is the moment. And Congressman Neal and I have met with Governor Baker and the delegation out in the western part of the state. And a lot of discussion was over, we need to create a new authority to run this. Well, whatever we need to do, but that may take a little time.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we should not put money aside for East-West or West-East Rail. That doesn't mean the state shouldn't start applying for these other pots of money.
Mhm.
I mean, this is a big deal. And, and the reason why this is important, as somebody from Worcester, I can tell you the difference that increased rail has made here in the city of Worcester, from Worcester to Boston, the commuter rail. I mean, it has helped transform the neighborhood where where Union Station is in Worcester. It has allowed people to live here in points between here and Boston and be able to go to work in Boston, or vice versa, quite frankly.
Yes.
It has been a huge economic stimulus, and we need to understand that the same thing can happen if we further connect the east to the west. And so I'm hopeful that we're on a path toward getting this done, but I'm always nervous until it's done. And this is the moment. I mean, the money is there.
Right.
We, as you know, we will never get another infrastructure bill like this, anytime soon.
Maybe ever. Maybe
Right.
ever.
So this is the moment. And so we need the state leaders. I mean, the state has to take the lead right now.
Yes.
We're hoping the Baker-Polito administration will do that. Again, we've had some good conversations with the governor and lieutenant governor. And, when Congressman Neal is in a good position on Ways and Means, I'm in a good position on rules. We have a good administration in Washington that we have good relationships with. So let's all use our advantage now and get this done.
100% agreement here. And I tell you, I think I had said this to you before. One concern at USDOT is that they can't spend the money fast enough.
Right.
That, the 12 billion for us, yes, and then competitive grants, yes.
Right.
But they're concerned that these things take time, and you got to move now.
Right.
You can't wait till 2020, late 2023. I mean, that.
No, it's now. It's now. Yeah. And so my hope is that, that we can get Governor Baker to begin this process. And, I'm obviously hoping that Maura Healey will be our next governor. And we need to make sure that, this is a priority of hers, which I know it is.
Yeah.
And we will get this done.
From your lips.
So.
We talked a couple of weeks ago, and we were at an event together, and you were describing your visit to the Ukraine and with Speaker Pelosi et al. And in the course of that, there were a couple of really not just interesting but stimulating stories that you conveyed. And I just wonder if you could take a minute or two to describe the visit.
Yeah, no, it was a fascinating visit and an inspirational visit. I mean, we flew to Poland and then we went from Poland to Kiev, and that in and of itself, that just from Poland to Kiev was a 12-hour excursion. And I was with Speaker Pelosi, Congressman Schiff, Jason Crow, and the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, Greg Meeks, and it was just us, no staff, and we went and had a 3.5-hour meeting with President Zelensky, who again is an incredibly courageous leader of that country, who has a mastery of every topic you can imagine. I mean, but he also told us of the horrors of this war, that Russia is launching a particularly vicious war against Ukraine, targeting maternity hospitals, civilian areas. They're uncovering war crimes where Russian troops basically have massacred, countless people. And, it's just vicious. And I think, the issue is, what do you do? And without getting involved in World War III. And I think, some people say we should not get involved. Well, you don't get involved. You just basically say, Putin, go obliterate Ukraine, and he will kill countless people. I mean, it's just a cruel, awful thing. And if he does that, then what's next? We were in Poland, and the Polish president was saying they're nervous about Russia trying to come back into Poland, and they're a member of NATO. So there's a lot of concern, and you see other countries now wanting to be part of NATO because they're afraid that if they're not, then Russia will feel free to go in after them. So Putin is wants to, I don't know, recreate the old Russian Soviet Empire. Who knows what is in his brain?
Yes.
But the deal is that I think we're doing the right thing. But the meeting with Zelensky was really quite incredible. Speaker Pelosi is amazing. I mean, and I also raised to President Zelensky that Putin's war is not just against the people of Ukraine. It's a war against vulnerable people all over the world, because Ukraine is one of the bread baskets of the world. So a lot of, grain, sunflower oil, maize. I mean, a lot of stuff is purchased from Ukraine to feed people in Africa and in the Middle East. The Ukrainians can't ship any of that out because Putin won't let them. And so people are going to be in really tough shape because they're not going to have access to food. They're not going to be able to purchase food. Any relief organizations will not have enough to be able to distribute food. So it's another added tragedy of Putin's behavior.
Yes. And did President Zelensky comment on the future weeks, months, etc., on where he thought this might go? Because of course now, I mean, it's been 4 months, I believe, and so.
Well, and so we were there a while ago, and he had already defied conventional wisdom. People thought that when Putin launched this war, Putin would be in Kiev, in a matter of a day.
Sure.
And here is Ukraine, standing up to this, massive power, Russia, and they're still standing. And Zelensky believes that they will win. He asked for more, which is understandable. And some of the things he asked for, I think, are reasonable, and we can help him. Some of the things are not. Again, the delicate balance here is how you not get sucked into World War III.
Yes.
Russia has nuclear weapons. We don't. Obviously, we want to make sure that those kinds of weapons are not used in this war. and so that's the balance. The other thing, quite frankly, is we also need to be working with the Ukrainians to try to find a way to end this war, right? If there's going to be a negotiation, what does that negotiation look like? Obviously, it has to be what the Ukrainians want, but we need to continue to try to find whether there are any open avenues for negotiations to bring this to an end. And then the final thing I'm going to say, and I worry about this as somebody who thinks our military budget is way too big, is we can't allow this to be used as an excuse to further explode the size of the military budget.
Right.
And we have more nuclear weapons than anybody else in the world. I mean, we don't need any more. We have more bombs and weapons. Some of them are obsolete. Some of them we don't even need anymore. We continue to build them. I would much rather invest those monies in our people, or even putting it to a deficit reduction, if that's what people want to do, than continuing to just expand the military industrial complex. So we need to make sure that this is not used as an excuse to just like balloon military spending to an even more astronomical number.
Do you think you're going to have to confront that in the next, 7 weeks in terms of the defense reauthorization bill? Or
yeah, well, the defense reauthorization bill is way too big, in my opinion. And I've told the chairman, who I respect, and I've told the speaker, there's no way in hell I'm voting for a bill that big. This is crazy. National security is about more than the number of bombs we have. It's about whether people have a job that pays a livable wage, whether people can put food on the table, whether they have housing, whether they can, they have kids have access to good education, whether they have health care. All those things are sources of our national strength. And we need to keep that in mind. And, the people that I talk to, as I'm doing my in-person town halls, they lose sleep at night wondering whether they can fill up the gas tank,
Yep.
whether or not they can afford groceries. That's what keeps them up at night. And so we can't turn our backs on that. And, so I get it. There are lobbyists all around Washington saying we need this system, this system, this system, this, I get it, but, we don't need all the stuff that people are pushing out there. And, we need a tough but lean military budget. And so, unfortunately, I'm in the minority when we're having this conversation right now, but I can't vote for an NDAA that is as big as the one that's being proposed. And it's a problem, not just because of Republicans, it's a problem because of some Democrats too. And I respect everybody, but I just respectfully disagree with this, ballooning of our defense budget.
have you heard the attempt at leveraging the Ukraine situation for increased a much
Yeah. Oh,
larger-
yeah. No, yeah, we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
I've been hearing that all the time.
Yeah.
So, that's what always happens. And every time you have, there's a war where, going on in the world, we got to do more. Well, no, you know what? How about get rid of the bloat? How about get rid of things we don't need? How about trying to get back to negotiating arms control agreements that will reduce and ultimately eliminate our, nuclear weapons in this on this planet? We ought to be moving in a direction toward demilitarizing the world, not further militarizing the world.
Further,
And I
yes.
get it. This is a dangerous place. But let me just say, when we talked about food before, I'll tell you something. I'm a believer that, if we were more aggressive in leading the world toward eliminating hunger and extreme poverty, that will do more to enhance our national security than, building more military bases, in every country we can think of. Or sending more arms to oftentimes tin horn dictators who abuse the rights of their own people. So, we have defense companies in Massachusetts. I respect the work that they do, but they're producing weapons for places like Saudi Arabia, where the crown prince, has no respect for human rights and had a Washington Post journalist murdered and dismembered. And really, is that what we want to do? And I think we need to rethink some of these things and have these discussions. things won't change overnight, but we have to start steering the debate in a different direction.
Absolutely. Talk about steering a debate. The revelations from the January 6th committee in the last couple of weeks, but certainly in the last few days, are stunning, and stunning even for folks who thought they couldn't be stunned.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I saw Mike Capuano last night, and he said, you know, I listen to this stuff, and finally, I hear this woman, a former staffer, describe this. He said, I have to tell you, I'm not astounded by much, but I was astounded by that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, just every time you think you can't be shocked anymore, you're shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, we came so close to losing our democracy, to having a coup succeed in this country. And, you know, and here's the deal, the coup's not over.
Right.
You know, as you know, I took over for Speaker Pelosi. I was in the chair.
Yes.
That day. And so I was one of the last people off the floor. I actually came face to face with these, you know, rioters, whatever we want to call them. And, you know, that's right. Shortly after that, they shot the woman who they tried to put through the window that they broke with their bare hands to get at us, I assume to kill us. And now listening to the testimony and listening to all the weapons that people had access to, I mean, you know, it's amazing that more people weren't hurt or died that day. It just unbelievable. But look, you know, this was a violent insurrection. Yes. And you know, and I tell people that, you know, the debate leading up to the midterms is not the usual Republican Democratic debate of size of government, tax cuts, you know, environmental policy. I mean, those are all important stuff, right? But yeah, this is about whether we will have a democracy. And I'm really worried about what's happening in certain states, not only making it more difficult for people to vote, but in some states, giving a panel the ability to nullify an election that they don't like. And add to that, this horrific rogue Supreme Court. I mean, we're in very dangerous territory, and I'm very concerned about where we are right now.
Well, I think I have to say to you that I fear that some of these things that have just taken place, actions just conducted by the Supreme Court, and other things proposed, yeah, I'm not sure people quite get the idea that you can't reverse these things in a year.
No.
2 years. Generations are much longer than they used to be. We used to count generations in 10-year frameworks, but not anymore. Yeah. And so these steps now to be undone, I can't even imagine how long it will take. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, and one of the things that needs to happen is we either need to talk about expanding the court.
Yes.
And if we're not going to do that, then we ought to talk about at least making exceptions within the filibuster to allow Congress to be able to codify some of these things. Because women are going to die because of their decision on overturning Roe. I mean, women will die, literally die, yes, in this country. And you know, and I'm also particularly offended by the fact that many of these judges lied. They just lied. They perjured themselves
in the hearings, yeah,
in the hearings, and then even when they were meeting with individual senators. I mean, why do we even have hearings? I mean, if what these people say doesn't matter, if it's just a game, you know, to cover up what they really want to do. And I mean, people like Clarence Thomas in their concurring opinion, as you mentioned, said they want to go after other things, marriage, yes, equality, yes, you know, who you can be with in the privacy of your bedroom, contraception. I mean, really? I mean, get out of here. These people, these judges they are rogue, and they are not representing the will of the American people. And I can't recall a time where we had a court that's actively taking away people's constitutional rights. And people are upset, and they're scared, and they're nervous. I think that the thing is, what I want to make sure doesn't happen is that people say, oh, it doesn't matter, I can't do anything. It does matter. Had Hillary Clinton won in 2016, we would not be having this conversation now. Roe would be safe. A woman's right to an abortion would be protected. We wouldn't be talking about overturning marriage equality. I mean, so yeah, elections matter, and maybe we all don't get everything we want when a candidate gets elected, but there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. No such thing as a perfect president. There's no such thing as a perfect member of Congress, right? You do the best you can, and you can only get done what is possible within the reality that you are living. And, so this is, people really need to step up. Everybody does. And it's not just going out to vote anymore. We have to make sure that we are talking to friends and relatives and people we went to school with who live in other states and saying, you got to get out and vote.
Yes.
And you guys talk to your friends and relatives, and we have to do more right now than we have done in previous elections. And whether that means getting on a bus or driving your car to another state and working for a campaign that is particularly close, you got to do it. And so this is a consequential moment in our history.
Totally. And I guess the striking thing for many of us is that we've not seen settled law reversed in our lifetime.
Right. I mean,
it's exceptional, right. Obviously.
Right. Yeah. But the lack of, and again, I'm horrified by what the Supreme Court has decided here. And I'm even more horrified by the fact that we have governors and state legislatures in some states, that are, putting laws forward that would ban abortion, even in the case of rape or incest.
Yes.
I mean, really? I mean, again, most of the people that are doing this are white men, but putting that aside, it's like, it goes back to what I said before, women will die. Life is gray. It's complicated. And for legislatures and politicians and, right-wing judges to make these, these decisions that, take away a woman's right to have control over her body, to take away her choices, I think is offensive and unconscionable. My daughter, who's 20, said, I will have less rights than mom.
Yeah, true.
And it's like, is that the legacy these people want to leave?
Well, they've been at it for 50 years, Jim. So I guess it is. I guess that was their goal from 50 years ago. And now, as you say, you wonder, what are the other goals?
Right.
What else do they want to undo? And and it really, at City, it puts the states in some states in a very, very difficult position, because when you start stripping these down federally, the recourse has got to be, unless Congress is going to act, which appears to be doubtful, is that the states have to act, and then they have to defend that action.
Right.
And that ain't easy, as you know.
Yeah.
And
then if the elections turn out not the way we want them to, the way I want them to, and and Republicans were to get a bigger majority, they could also, by the way, they could codify language that would make abortion illegal in Massachusetts and every
Yes.
state in the country.
Yes.
So, and you already see some members of Congress saying they want to do that. They want to introduce bills to say, not just leave it to the states, but we should have a federal ban. And so, for those who say, oh, in Massachusetts, well, we have better laws and we could do this, we could do that. Yeah, for now. But that doesn't mean that we're totally out of the woods. I mean, they still can come back.
Right.
And God knows what other kind of decisions these judges are going to make. Not only on this topic, but on other things that we all regard as as settled law or now rights that we think are enshrined in the Constitution.
Yes. So reminding ourselves that they also undid a very specific gun law in the state of New York that was in place for 111 years.
Right. Yeah.
I
mean,
so.
Yeah. So right. They are, like I said, they're a rogue court, and we have to figure out a way to fight back, and we have to find a way to turn all this around, because this country's worth fighting for. And I don't want to leave to my kids a country that is so right wing, so reactionary, so oppressive and repressive, that it looks nothing like the country that I treasure and love. So I mean, we have to fight back, and whatever it takes, we have to fight back.
Yes. Well, we agree on that, like many other things. So it's been a terrific 45 minutes. Appreciate it so much. And let's see what the weeks ahead bring on the January 6th committee. I know they have some decisions to make after they finish whatever the hearings are, and that won't be easy. But I did hear Adam Schiff yesterday say that they need consensus to make that decision and move forward when this is over.
Right. Well, let me just end on this note. There's a lot going on that is overwhelming and it is disturbing. Having said all that, I am hopeful. I mean, in the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision, I mean, I'm bumping into people at supermarkets, on the street, they're all ready to do what they got to do, to take this country back from these people. And so that is good news, and people aren't giving up. And so we have a lot to do to protect our environment. We have a lot to do to promote economic justice and racial justice here in our own country. I mean, there's lots of stuff on our to-do list, and and I think people now realize that we have to be as intense in trying to get some of this stuff done, and providing the elected officials to be able to actually vote for this stuff. That I think there's going to be a record turnout in the midterm elections.
Really?
And I think we're going to defy history. I really do. I mean, I think the Republicans aren't going to win the House. I don't think they're going to win the Senate. And I think that's going to be a huge message. You said before that a lot of these Republicans have been fighting for 50 years to overturn Roe versus Wade. They've been fighting, but I think some of them secretly were hoping it would never happen, because now that it's happened, it's real.
Yeah.
And people are going to see the consequences, and they're going to have to answer for those, for the consequences. So we have to keep hope. My friend John Lewis always used to say, "Don't give in, don't give up. Keep hoping, keep fighting, keep up making good trouble," and that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. Well, thanks.
All right. All the best.
All the best. I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to episode 6 of OA on Air's Federal Insight podcast. This has been a production by O'Neill & Associates. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Be the first to hear our new content and more conversations like this one. Thank you.